I'm having some lovely grapes, boys. Nom 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 nom.
Okay, do you have seedless grapes? Do you have seedless grapes over there?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can get them imported, yeah.
Okay.
But why would you want the seedless ones? Do you know what? Oh my god! Do you know what the best grapes are?
No.
I don't think you've ever had them. The Yemeni grapes. Fuck, they're
What
so
makes
good.
them good?
Yemeni grapes.
They're constantly killed by Saudis.
Like slender. Exactly right.
Jesus.
Yemeni grapes are slender and long.
Ooh.
And they have like an indent
Just like
at
the
the
starving Yemenis population. Oh my god, you're making it too early.
Anyways,
Sicko.
the reason they're so good is because of two reasons. Number one, they're like almost crunchy. They're so like bursting with juice. They're so tight.
The way they crunch American Israeli ships in half.
Exactly right. That's number one. And number two, the sweetness. Boy, oh my god, they're so good.
It sounds like a red grape then, kind of like a.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they're pretty cool in their anti-imperialism, but calling them red, still not there.
I
can go on forever
call
with
them
this.
red.
Oh my god, so silly. But yeah, no, they're delicious.
Yeah. I've got two things. One, I'm buzzing and bouncing in my chair because I have started drinking the Celsius. So Hakeem, give me a real doctor's rundown here because it advertises itself as like a very healthy energy drink. I'm sure it's not. But is it? Would you take it over a soda or
Can't
alcohol?
you like shove like caffeine into some water and like I don't know, and it could be relatively healthy-ish? I don't fucking know.
It's like whatever you pump full of like taurine and like BCAAs and or just and 200 milligrams of caffeine is gonna be
Not
ridiculous,
good.
right? You're gonna get like an effect of some kind, right? It's gonna get a rise out of you. But that doesn't make the shit healthy. And also, it's just the caffeine thing and also the eventual dependency, man. I work with some people that will not... the unhealthiest people you're ever going to meet are physicians. I work with some people who will not start their day without an energy drink and will drink 2 or like 4 throughout their shift. Right? Ridiculous amounts of caffeine. I don't know how these people don't
2000
fucking
Zoomer
die.
fucking
That's
edgelords
insane.
with purple hair and shit.
Yeah, exactly. It's genuine. One of the people I work with, very good friend of mine. We were driving to a course once, and it was in a different city. And he shows up with this like special kind of energy drink we have over here, which has like 350 milligrams of caffeine out the get. And this is like the light one.
Oh my god!
And I'm like, the fuck am I gonna do with this? This is like 6 cups of coffee, my guy. What am I doing with it? And he was like, oh yeah, well, like when I get out of bed, so I can just wake up a little bit, or the equivalent of that saying, basically. I can perk up. This is what I drink. And I was like, I've seen you go through 2 of these at work. And he was like, hey, I usually have 2, and then before I go like home, I'll have another. So like, you drink 4 of these fucking things a day. Like a gram, a fucking gram of caffeine.
Just do cocaine at that point. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And they're always like, they're drinking fucking 5-6 coffees a day, and they're like, why am I so agitated? Why am I so anxious all the time? I mean, put down the fucking triple espresso, dude. God fucking damn it.
Exactly. I had a friend who one day wanted to like study overnight, which I'd never pull an all-nighter. Go to sleep, wake up at a reasonable hour, and then go study.
Or don't be nerds and don't fucking study, just swing it and shit. Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, well, you can't do that at school, but anyways.
Sure you can.
Well, you cut here, you cut over there. Stomach, liver, who gives a fuck?
Anyways.
Just, you poke it, move it.
I knew a guy who was like, I don't want to drink coffee, I don't want energy drinks, but they want the effective caffeine, so they got caffeine tablets, like the pills.
Yeah.
And they took way too fucking much.
Aww.
And then afterwards, I talked to him the day after. I was like, did you manage to sleep? Did you get any good studying done? He was like, I didn't study at all, and I didn't sleep. I was like, what the fuck did you do? And he was like, I just laid in bed. I was focusing on trying not to die. I was like, look at that. He was just like him. My heart was beating out of my chest. Yeah, like just palpitations because of it, unsurprisingly.
Can we like snort everything to get a better effect out of it? Like, why does it only work with like those specific white drugs and shit, like with pills or whatever? Why can't I snort salt and then, I don't know, everything gets saltier for the next day or some shit? I don't know.
Because salt...
Or water.
Salt
if I snort water, am I going to hydrate myself? I mean, I am. I'll just fuck up my nose.
There's no synaptic. You're not blocking any receptors or anything with salt or with water. Cocaine specifically acts on. I'm not going to sit here and go through it, but basically, one of them is pharmacologically active.
Yeah.
Okay. Right? The others are not.
Okay, so which like non-drug thing I would have an effect if I snorted?
There's no if you get an
like
effect,
juice,
then
if I get
there
the
is some
juice.
pharmacologically active
ingredient.
Okay.
Which is why people butt chug, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, brother. Yeah, brother.
Butt chug because you bypass there's something called first pass metabolism, which basically is the direct absorption from the gut vasculature. You bypass that because the vasculature you have in your rectum and in your anus and that general area is very thin-walled and absorbs very quickly, and then it goes directly into the bloodstream. That's why suppositories work so well, for example.
Okay.
That's why some people do like meth in their ass. Because it just
at that point you got to start questioning your life choices.
I mean,
exactly right. But
it kind of works the opposite way, you know. From questioning life too much, we search for meaning, and maybe meaning shall be found in crystal
ass.
Anyways, to get back to your question, JT, it is not healthy, no.
Damn.
It is not the unhealthiest thing you can do. But it's better to avoid these high amounts of caffeine. For an otherwise young and healthy person, it's alright, but who knows what fucking underlying
proprietary bullshit
arrhythmia you're gonna fucking develop, right? God knows what you have, what your pulmonary valve is gonna... You're gonna develop some fucking fibrillation, God knows what. Leave it be, alright? You don't need the extra caffeine. Drink 1 cup of coffee if you want.
Coffee's
develop the palate of an adult.
Develop
the palate of an adult, and then afterwards we can discuss. Well, actually, NCBI, I'm wondering, caffeine... And I don't think so. When it comes to atrial fibrillation, it's usually alcohol.
Really?
Yeah. But alcohol increases the likelihood of eliciting it. Incidence of atrial fibrillation is not increased by coffee consumption.
Hey.
Okay, wow.
That's just big coffee. That's big coffee. Be very careful.
Okay, look. In fact, we found a lower incidence of atrial fibrillation when caffeine consumption exceeded 436 milligrams a day.
I'm going to drink another one.
Go on.
Drink another.
Oh, my God.
I realize at this point that, like, I will just never have a normal sleeping schedule. I fucked it up like 3-4 years ago, I think, when I worked for some Americans, and then I worked like nights like for a year or some shit. And to this day, I will sometimes go to bed at 10:30 p.m. Sometimes I will go to bed at 5 a.m. And the fact that thanks to our beautiful patrons, to which we thank very much for supporting the show, we will I get to do this. Like I don't have like a strict work day, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So that has like pushed that kind of relatively toxic behavior further. But as everything in this era of lying to yourself and gaslighting yourself into different unsustainable lifestyles, I recently watched a TikTok, and there the guy says he's against over-organizing his life.
Ooh.
He likes to live spontaneously, and through that questions the quote unquote mainstream dogma of the 9 to 5. So basically the dude just like he's reinvented a very cool, like not very cool, but like just from a marketing perspective, very cool new pitch. He's not doing the wake up at 4 a.m. thing, do a cold bath and shit. He's don't go to sleep until like 6 a.m. or whatever the fuck. So yes, I found a new way on how to gaslight myself into my completely unsustainable sleeping patterns, or I will just fucking give up and buy melatonin at this point and just fucking
Hakeem
drug myself
ruined that
to
for
sleep.
me. He says it doesn't work, so now I know it's a placebo, and now it doesn't work for me at all anymore. Thanks a lot.
Oh my god, thank you, Hakeem.
I mean, it's like there's first generation antihistamines do really work well.
I switched to Benadryl. I take 5 every night and see the Hat Man.
Exactly right. Yes, see the man without face, without eyes. But I was gonna say, by the way, I did some more looking around. It turns out that caffeine consumed in the form of energy drinks, especially high amounts of caffeine, will increase your likelihood of not only fibrillation but other kinds of arrhythmias. So. Yeah.
Christ. All right. I guess I'm going back to being a hydro homie. Just water.
Exactly right. Stick to water, please. Just stick to water.
Long story short, everybody, we'll wrap this banter up right now. I'll tell you what. Hakeem has said there is no risk if you drink 400 milligrams of caffeine in the form of energy drinks. This episode is brought to you by Celsius. Live fit with our new sparkling mango passion fruit. Well, howdy, y'all. Welcome back to the Deprogram. This is, what is this? This is our second episode since we've been back from our trip. It is so sad not being in the same room with these boys. But we love it all the same. I made the terrible mistake. We were trying to come up with a topic for this episode, and we bounced a couple ideas back and forth, and nothing was really resonating with us. And then I saw somebody had tweeted, "Yo, the Project 2025 secret training videos have been leaked by ProPublica." I'm like, "Oh, we can watch this
and
drop, respond." Yeah, and. So I wanted to kill myself watching these things, so I apologize in advance, boys.
I hate you for making us fucking... This was genuinely, unironically, my least favorite experience of preparing for a fucking episode.
Yeah, I know. Because there's evil...
Having appendicitis would have been nicer.
Yeah, I mean, there's evil and then there's boring evil, and this is just so dull. I don't know if you guys had the same experience.
Oh, absolutely. I fell asleep twice watching my guy. I hope your evil guys were at least entertaining evil guys, because my guy was really not. He looks like 3 fucking watermelons stacked on each other and talks like a watermelon as well.
The issue, I was going to say, the issue is that it was fucking dorky. That's the worst part.
Yes.
When you say evil, makes it, at least you're giving... You're ascribing a certain cool agency to them, which they do not have nor deserve.
True.
It was just fucking dorky. It looked like, I'll give you an example. There is a guy who uploads 90s commercial runs from American television.
Oh, yeah.
On YouTube, yeah. Sometimes I'll watch some people who do commentary on this stuff just in the background because they make it a bit funny. I'm sure people remember them, Djibouti dubs, the people who do the cool dubs over it. Yeah. Anyways. They would have running commentary on these things. I put it in the background when I'm cleaning and whatnot. Sometimes they would have ads where a guy pretends to be a psychic or a medium or something. And he comes on and the fucking quality is very grainy. He's wearing an old fucking disgusting looking suit and he has some pedophile's beard. Right? And he's talking about what could possibly lay beyond? And is that fucking grainy, weird vibe? Somebody's fucking basement back room?
Yeah. So, dear listeners, instead of waving off and choosing not to cover this, we doubled down. We all watched this for you. We doped ourselves up with our favorite beverages, and we watched the meant to be private Project 2025 training videos for the conservative super soldiers who are meant to take over or take back the federal government for the Patriots. So we watched, there are a bunch of different episodes with different topics. I chose one about left-wing terminology. What did you boys end up choosing?
I took the history of the conservative movement.
Oh, that sounds
which
like dog
fucking
shit.
Kill me. Apparently, there's a 15-week course, 2.5 hours. Do you know what I would love to actually be there? Not to sit there and actually pay attention, but because this will be uninterrupted reading time where I can't be elsewhere. I need to be there for the credit. Like my fucking seminars in med school.
It feels like this is the same just for the wider American conservative right wing. They probably all have to sit through this shit, at least those pre-approved for relative leadership positions in different departments or private institutions all around the country. Mine was fucking social media. Hakeem, go fuck yourself. He read through the list and he was like, you did fucking marketing. Here, you do the fucking watermelon guy. And then I did the fucking watermelon guy. Mine was like listening to every single manager I've ever had throughout my career, but he's also racist. That's it.
Dude, my guy looks like a dude that you would be forced to sit next to on a very full bus, and he would then touch your thigh with his hand. He'll try to he'll try to play it off like it was an accent, but he'll go full palm on your bare fucking thigh. Okay, that's the guy.
A little circle with his finger, yeah. Jesus Christ. Okay. Well, brace yourself, dear listener. Go grab your favorite beverage, your favorite snack. Get you an energy drink. Get you a vape. I don't know, whatever your vice is. And we'll get started. We'll
just get a gun and kill yourself.
Honestly.
Do not get a gun while you listen to this episode, because your drive towards grabbing it and deep throating it will increase as the episode develops. Okay,
exponentially. I'm going to put in some sound bites from these episodes, so you have to suffer as we have suffered, but we picked the juiciest bits. So we'll begin with mine. All right, mine was called "Hidden Meanings." The Monsters in the Attic, left-wing code words and language. They had 3 titles for this thing in addition to the different YouTube title. And it was these 2 blonde, 40 to early 50-something women, big old cross
JT's
necklaces.
favorite demographic.
Exactly, yeah. Wine mom type things. Just really real suburban types. And they had both worked in the federal government. And that's the whole thing with Project 2025. These are not like just conservative talking heads. These are conservatives who have worked in government. So, they're the hypocritical types. They didn't waste any time. Literally the first thing they said was, I'm just a normal American woman, but to the left, that makes me a cisgendered ethno-imperialist birthing person with pronouns she, her. Like, God, they're coming out swinging with that. That was it's so
Imagine
funny.
if this was all like an elaborate skit, like some guy actually,
that's
with
honestly
reasonable politics.
That's what I was thinking the whole time. It's like, this feels like a Helldivers cinematic or something. This feels really goofy, or like something out of Starship Troopers. Anyway, it was very clear from the beginning that the main lady has clearly never used a teleprompter before. And it's obvious that it took many, many takes to get through these lines. I mean, complete wet towel, zero riz.
She's cisgendered breeder human sapiens. Okay.
Yeah,
if she was not any of those, she would be super based, and we would like her.
Yeah. So about
palm
2 minutes
covered,
in,
melanin deficient female dog.
Oh gosh, waiting. I was like, oh no, here come the slurs. Just waiting for the slurs. This is gonna take so long to get through with you people.
It's called a podcast. So in it, people talk to each other and throw different quips towards what you pre-prepared. Okay.
There's some guy running a toothbrush around the base of a faucet, like a bathroom fixture, right now while this is playing in the background. Okay, he has time. They them, excuse you, we're progressive, blah blah blah. Okay, they them have to. Sorry, go on.
All right. Anyway, about 2 minutes in, there's a stupid little exchange about, my kids are afraid of monsters in the attic, and I always tell them they're not real, but guess what? They're real, and they're all dirty communists, and the words and phrases that they use say one thing but mean another. And this is the root premise of the episode, is that the left weaponizes language to add their evil agenda, their gay agenda, their trans agenda, whatever, their commie agenda into federal documents.
And they're saying that in a video where they're teaching conservatives how to add right-wing agenda into the way we speak. I love right-wingers. America. I absolutely fucking adore them for one very specific reason. I'm a very stupid guy. Like, I am profoundly fucking stupid. And I watch these people and I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, give me a Nobel Peace Prize and put me in a very high fucking office, okay? Because I am fucking brilliant, okay? Nikola Tesla, who? Albert Einstein, who? You Goplicantus chat, motherfucker.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's the whole time, even the commenters, and YouTube commenters, generally kind of lowest common denominator people. But even they were like, okay, the left says one thing, it means another. Okay, weaponizes language. Okay, you mean like the right's dog whistles about Jews, migrants, minorities, tongue-in-cheek references to the Holocaust, or Pinochet throwing people out of helicopters, that sort of thing. So it's obvious what they're doing.
Inner city crime. I wonder what inner city crime means. I'm melanated for, perhaps.
Who could tell? Who could tell what these things actually mean? And then they go into a lot of anti-trans slop. There's some pearl clutching about the meaning of words, like they actually give a shit. But then at 3:54, let me give you this one soundbite.
Career bureaucrats and the left are also using language to change culture and gain more and more authority, thereby upsetting the balance of power envisioned by our founding fathers. This, in essence, weaponized language against the American people.
This training is vital to you as a political appointee. If there's one thing you take from this training, it is to know when you start your job as a political appointee, every single word, phrase, and acronym must be vetted, and you must determine what implications every word has before publishing or moving forward with any official or internal document.
So these people are doing the thing where they conflate liberal politicians and actual Marxists. They use the terms interchangeably. It's on purpose. there's not a single actual communist in the federal government, in case anybody was still wondering. But they know this. And it's funny because they're doing the exact thing they're accusing the left of doing. They are weaponizing language to scare their audience into believing their lies. And the fascinating thing about this to me is that this was not intended for the broader public, like the people they genuinely think are stupid, like the downwardly mobile white working class people and suburban wine moms that they're trying to scare. This is for like the true believers, the conservative warriors for truth, that kind of thing.
They're actually employed that should be employed as well. That is a very interesting tidbit and a very important point that JT just mentioned, that like keep that in mind as we go over the type of language these guys use, to say the least.
There's this one line that I'm going to throw it in because it was so funny. At 5:46, they're like, "Brave patriot, we do not know what scary words the left will use for men and women when you take office." It's just like, that's like, they have to throw these little things in there. It's like, throughout this, I'm like, how much of this do they believe? And I think it becomes more apparent to me towards the end, because there's one point where the lady clearly goes off teleprompter and just kind of talks about the boring humdrum day-to-day stuff of working in the federal government. I'm like, okay, so all of this stuff about, gender and things like that was clearly scripted because she wouldn't really say it otherwise, because she doesn't actually give a shit. So this is just for
internal marketing,
I guess. Yeah. And their whole premise for this episode is the Orwell quote, and I'm going to paraphrase it: "He who controls words controls culture," or something like that.
He controls my cock. How about that? Fucking don't quote Orwell to me.
I know, exactly. They literally quote him right at the beginning, and then they keep repeating words change culture, like really solemnly throughout the episode. It is so
It's obvious.
It is so stupid.
Mom, you changed my diaper.
This is the same. Oh my god, I'm getting Vietnam flashbacks.
A work of fiction has become such a staple for morons of all stripes to point to and just like chimp out. They're like, oh, Orwell, 1967. Oh, literally.
I read the book.
Yeah. And there's a reason it's become such a meme. It's like everybody points to it, and, they can say Orwell's literally anything. So anyway, all of that to say, that was a very long introduction from them. They set the thing up with all the buzzwords and stuff. And then they get into the meat of the episode, finally, around 7.5 minutes in. And they list the 5 core topics that the left focuses on in terms of language.
The 5 topic areas for today's discussion are centered on women, children, and family, environment, human rights and border security, the gender cult, and equity.
Now, the astute among you, dear listener, may have noticed that these are things that should be topics of conversation in the government, regardless of political affiliation. Like, this is all just like obvious governmental stuff.
They talk about society.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Which we live in. But let's hear some examples of the twisting of language the left gets up to, shall we? Of course, they talk about abortion first, claiming that the left has weaponized language surrounding family planning and reproductive health to hide that it's all a scheme to murder children. Here's a quote.
Bethany, it's incredible how the left is able to make killing children and babies a pro-movement. I mean, their narrative is just incredible and so opposite of what the reality of the situation is.
This is so unbelievably disingenuous. No one is forcing you to get an abortion. No one is happy to have to get an abortion. It is a medical procedure that exists for a reason. Even if you decide that you don't believe a woman has the right to decide whether to carry a pregnancy to term, there must be considerations made for life-threatening pregnancies or instances of rape or incest. This shit happens. These are problems human beings have to deal with. And it usually happens in places with little to no sex education. Places overwhelmingly run by these right-wing freaks who are trying to get rid of these asterisks where it can be okay to have some kind of end to a pregnancy. If there is no safe way to have an abortion in life-threatening situations, drastic measures will be taken. This is how it has always worked. And it's the same thing with everything else, right? If you make something illegal, it doesn't stop. It just goes into shady back alleys where everything is less regulated, less safe, and more traumatizing.
When I'm learning new things, I thought we just hate babies. I got into this
we
whole
just
thing
eat them,
because I want to shoot babies in the face. Hey, baby,
It's such a funny thing for them to latch onto. And I mean, I get it. I get why it resonates, right? Anyone who says they're protecting children, that's a moral high ground. But I'll give you
except girls and children, except after they're born.
Yeah.
Once they're 1 day old, no, fuck that.
Get a job, you freeloader.
They're fucking welfare queens, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's any prodding and that kind of facade of pro-life completely collapses. But I'll give you an example, and you can, this is a personal one, so if you guys want to skip ahead maybe 40 seconds or so, totally understand. But this is something that I had to deal with recently. Kelsey and I have always wanted 2 kids. We have one perfect daughter named Evie. She's almost 2 now. Amazing little girl. We found out recently that Kelsey was pregnant again, and when we went in for the 8-week visit, the news wasn't good. The pregnancy wasn't viable. It had just stopped growing at like 5 weeks. So our options were to wait another couple weeks and see what happens naturally, because the pregnancy wasn't going to come to term, or consider some kind of medical intervention. So we decided to wait for a bit and come back for another checkup. We prefer to do things like the natural way when possible. So we waited, nothing happened, went back for another ultrasound, nothing had changed. And now we were getting to the point where the doctor really recommended Kelsey consider taking a medication that would prompt the natural termination of the pregnancy to avoid health risks. And this is one of those situations where, there was no heartbeat, a little bundle of cells had stopped growing, there was 0 chance of the pregnancy being successful, and it was starting to become a little bit of a health concern. And even in this scenario, to these disgusting, pathetic, hypocritical Karens, this scenario to them is still evil. It is still wrong. I have nothing but contempt for these people. They make this caricature of a person who gets abortions all the time like it's entertainment or something, right? That person, that caricature of this left-wing evil baby killer does not exist. The only people who enjoy suffering are the ones trying to make sure a woman's only option is a back alley clinic with a fucking clothes hanger. These people are not pro-life. They're just vindictive, pseudo-religious control freaks, right? So rant over. That's the last personal thing I'm gonna do.
Yeah. Oh, just to the materialist underpinning of the recent relative push for anti-abortion measures is because the United States does have a general labor shortage, but also certain sectors of the American ruling class are concerned with the demographics of this labor shortage. Yes. So what that means and what that really entails is that we want more white babies, right? The natural order of things will kind of take care of the black ones, if you read what I'm saying, and that's what they believe. But otherwise, this is the general basis for this. Same reason for anti-abortion things that pass in Poland or wherever else. That's the reason, really, is fundamentally there.
Yeah, and it becomes abundantly clear that that's the case just a few minutes later, and I'll get to that.
Sorry.
No, you're exactly right, and it should be apparent that that's what's going on. But watching this, again, I apologize to you guys for making you guys watch this slop, but this reaffirmed my belief. Sorry. I know. The last time we watched something, I was like, I'm never going to do that again. What was the Hillary Clinton
I'm getting caught up for the shit I put you through, so that's why I'm not giving you much shit now, because I'm eating the thing I pissed out. But
I think we've all
you kind of overdid it,
recommended.
You kind of overdid it. It's
I know, I'm sorry.
I made you, take ketamine and run through the forest, and you just tied me down in a basement, and you were hosing me down with hot water as you're spanking me. Jesus Christ.
Oh yes,
okay, that kind of sounds fucking great. Why did I use that as an
example of a not thing? The best analogy.
Yeah, very bad. Can we
anyway,
do that now?
Now that we're back from our spanking session, watching this just completely reaffirmed my belief that no good comes of hate watching. My blood pressure went through the roof watching these disgusting cretins, these absolute sickos. Like I said earlier, I literally felt like I was watching some Helldivers parody or something. It is insane. It is completely detached from reality. And speaking of detached from reality, they then go on to complain about climate change. How it used to be called global warming, and then, quote, science came along and disproved that, and that, quote, we just had one of the coldest winters ever, checkmate libs. And again, I go back and forth on whether these people actually believe they're slop or whether they just really know their target audience. And I do think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think mostly they believe the average American is just incredibly stupid, which, okay. Yeah, fair enough. But they also seem to be really confused about the climate change stuff, just genuinely ignorant about it. This is not terribly difficult to understand if you take half an hour to do the tiniest bit of reading. But then there's a wild quote. Listen to this.
Now, when I think of climate change, I immediately think of population control, don't you? I think about the people who don't want you to have children because of the impact on the environment. Perhaps not everyone will make that connection, but after spending time in the international space trying to protect life, I can tell you that this is part of their ultimate goal, to control people.
Okay, so now we see this is the part Hakeem just very accurately predicted. We see how the right likes to connect the climate change issue and the abortion issue with the white genocide myth. It is no coincidence that the two presenters here are white, blonde, kind of matronly women. They present their whole spiteful ideology as a defense of children, specifically white European children. They're not going to say that, but that's what they mean. They think the left, read minorities, and the left is secretly trying to outbreed the, quote, normal white conservatives and render them a minority in their own land that they, took by force. This whole episode may seem deranged on the surface, and yes, in some ways it definitely is, but it's expertly assembled. From a production standpoint, you start with a white woman introducing herself as a, quote, normal American woman, insinuate that they're the only thing stopping the monstrous left from murdering helpless children, use the settled science of climate change to pivot to white genocide, right? It's the perfect presentation for their target audience of terrified suburban women, of downwardly mobile white workers, and the devoted cultists of the far right who want nothing more than to get into power and launch legal pogroms of the unclean and the evil communists, right?
Yeah, this is just to make sure that the people that are put in positions of power that we're supposed to watch these videos, for them to make sure that those who might be struggling with the way the general so-called left needs to be presented can now have all of their cards in one place. That's at least my reading. They're just doing a bit of extra homework so that in case a conservative that is not insanely unhinged, I mean, if you're an American conservative, you're de facto insanely unhinged, but you get my point, that doesn't go into these literal borderline nutty conspiracy theories, for him or her to feel that it's okay for them to go into those conspiracy theories because that is the mainstream kind of ideological current that they want to create when it comes to talking about, again, the so-called left wing.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's a combination presentation for I assume they want to get, because there aren't enough, quote unquote, qualified, legitimately bright conservative minds to draw from in places of lower government. They need to get some of these soccer moms who really want to improve their communities and whatnot by making sure the wrong type of people don't get in, stuff like that. So they're merging their target, Fox News audience, with the pencil-pushing crowd that they need to actually get the work done. And then at about 24 minutes in, they get to the right's newest obsession, gender. Here's another quote.
So Bethany, I mean, these are some great examples. And another one that comes to my mind that has been completely co-opted by the left is gender. Where are we today on this issue and the language and the words and the definitions?
Let's talk about the word gender. The word gender is no longer a polite way to refer to biological sex, male or female. The word now is completely toxic. It's no longer being used to mean male or female, but now how people identify, which is where we get this idea of gender identity. Katie, did you know that there are between 72 and 1,000 different kinds of gender?
This is so funny to me because it sounds like these adult women think the word sex is a naughty word. It's very much the kind of the pearl clutching evangelical type, these women, but it's also just straight up wrong. The idea of gender identity is it's not a new one, right? The first books the Nazis burned and the first institutions they shuttered, besides the Marxist stuff, obviously, were the ones discussing the concepts of gender and sexuality. There's this great comic showing the gap between grade school explanations of concepts and then professional explanations. There's the first panel is like basic math, like 2 + 2 = 4, and then the second panel has advanced calculus. And the student's like, okay, cool, that's more complex, but I get it. Then there's basic science and then quantum physics, same thing. And then it's gender, and it's like male and female on the basic side, and then the advanced one has a more complex explanation of gender does not equal sexuality, and the student's just freaking out. And that's pretty much what these two clowns are doing, right? Imagine how spiteful and ignorant you have to be to accept that everything else in the world has a simple version and a more accurate version, but somehow the one simple version that confirms your bigotry somehow doesn't have a more advanced explanation. That's just you being stupid, right? It's you don't want to engage with reality. That's fine. That's on you. Just don't be surprised when people dislike you for it. And they've got this campaign of outrage that, oh, the left is so intolerant when they claim to be tolerant. It's like, you guys are just being assholes. That's your whole thing. Yeah. If you don't want to engage with reality, that's not my fault. Anyway, they go on to whine about sex assigned at birth and pronouns and a bunch of other gender stuff.
Don't even bother.
Exactly.
Don't even fucking...
That's exactly the conclusion I came to. It's like, I don't care what these people have to say. I mean, seriously, there has to be a baseline for reasonable discussion. If we can't agree on basic facts, there is nothing to talk about. And I'm not an expert on this stuff, but it doesn't take much. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just cause I really hate these discussions because it's like climate change.
Yeah.
If the person you're discussing with is talking in such bad faith where they reject outright, like, just truths of life, right? Or even simple things like they will not accept definitions given from the other side what they're arguing. The difference between sex and gender, blah, 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 biological versus what people identify. Even if you disagree with it, I mean, at least appreciate the difference in the definitions. Same thing with climate change. Just saying like, oh no, well, Earth has always had warming and cooling cycles. Yes, that's technically right, but also this time it's very, very different for XYZ reason. But and you don't even fucking bother approaching this because these people aren't interested in conversation.
Exactly.
They want to drag you down into this bullshit so that you get stuck in these conversations so that eventually the other question, the class struggle and the real meat of stuff never gets touched.
Yeah, nothing gets
get bogged down in the culture war shit, so the class struggle shit never gets touched. Stupid.
Exactly right. Yeah, and that's the problem we have in the U.S. and honestly, increasingly in more places around the world, at least in Western Europe. People just live in different realities. And this is something we've struggled with as a species for a long time. It's just easier to construct an alternate reality today when we've got these media bubbles that are ready to reinforce whatever belief you already hold and slowly shepherd you into a worldview that is more convenient for the ruling class. I'll give one last addendum about gender-affirming care because these people really harped on that as a way to tie this bigotry back to their whole Protecting the Kids Act. If you are so against gender affirmation, put down the makeup. Don't get the nose job. Conservative men, don't go to that low T clinic. Lose the Rogaine. Don't do hair plugs. No plastic surgery. None of that stuff. All these things that make you feel more secure in your masculinity or femininity, that's a form of gender affirmation. Again, this is just an instance of them being hypocritical and only making a fuss when it allows them to discriminate against a group that historically has not towed the conservative line. So that's all I'll say on the gender issue. They really harped on it. But honestly, it's not worth talking about more than that.
They're just fucking weird.
Yeah,
that's why
exactly.
Currently,
the
Democrats are doing relatively well with that particular pitch. Like, where the fuck are you talking about child dicks? Why are you so obsessed about child penises? You're just fucking
It's
weird.
just gross.
And they're fucking weird. They are. They're objectively like, well, why the fuck are we talking about this? What the fuck? What the fuck? Grandpa, shut the fuck up. Jesus Christ, Mom. Grandpa's talking about child dicks again. Okay? That's the only way you should fucking interact with this.
Yeah, when people are being freaks, you call them freaks. Yeah.
Yeah. The people of the politicians and ideologues of basic human decency are quite literally some of the strangest fucking animals out there. Because, I mean, we always come back to that fucking harp what is reactionary thinking? It's seeing that the world is going down a shitter and refusing class consciousness. So you gotta blame it on something fucking else. And then they always find their little things to harp on. Not that those topics are not important, quite to the contrary. But the things that they can rally the.
It's intentionally distracting and bombastic.
Yeah, the hordes which do not have class consciousness. That's why I refer to them as hordes, because some basic fucking understanding of why you're getting screwed is, I think, the bare minimum you need in order to be qualified as a fucking equal member of society.
Anyway, moving on from that section, they next have a really long, exceptionally boring section where the one lady goes off teleprompter to explain some of the day-to-day stuff about the back and forth of writing and rewriting documents, about dealing with bureaucrats, and patting herself on the back for how great of a freedom warrior she was during her time in government. And it's funny because she's way better off the cuff than reading off a teleprompter. She just seems like a normal person, which is another indication to me that a lot of the people doing these presentations don't actually give a shit about
they want
most
money.
Of the yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're career politicians who got hauled in to give Project 2025 more job titles to look all official. Anyway, they end finally with this incredibly goofy bit.
As the Heritage Foundation's president, Dr. Kevin Roberts boldly and courageously states in the Mandate for Leadership, the next conservative president must make the institutions of American civil society hard targets for woke culture warriors. This starts with deleting the terms sexual orientation and gender identity, SOGI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, gender equality, gender equity, gender awareness, gender sensitive, abortion, reproductive health, reproductive rights, and any other term used to deprive Americans of their First Amendment rights out of every federal rule, agency regulation, contract, grant, regulations, and piece of legislation that exists. And the next conservative president will only be able to do so with your help. Are you up for this challenge? We think you are. Together, let's conquer the monsters in Uncle Sam's attic.
Doesn't the U.S. have bigger issues than
I know.
than words?
I know.
No, Hakeem, they do not. No, concentrate on the words. The words are very important. It's the words that you can't fucking feed your kids. It's the words that your job is getting outsourced that are causing it, etc., etc.
But the thing is, at the end of this, all the slop aside, I would pay good money to hear what these two women said immediately after the director called cut. You can just tell from looking at them that they do not give a shit about this. They see an opportunity to boost their career in right-wing politics, and they hate the average American. I really think that's the only reason they agreed to do this. And on the production side of things, just as a little piece of interest, because this is what I'm trained to do, I could make this myself. I could do better than this presentation. Like, the audio was fine, but the lighting wasn't great, and they just had the main camera going back and forth on this shitty slider the whole time. They didn't even bother to cover the little wiggle when it bumps the end of the slider and starts going back the other way. We could really easily make a commie version of this with very little effort. And honestly, I think the left is kind of missing out on that. In general, conservative media is quite polished, right? It looks good, it sounds good, it's inflammatory, it's easily accessible. Meanwhile, the liberals are boring, and the communist organizations still haven't figured out how to work a camera. I will say that PSL puts out some good media pieces, but like CPUSA, oh my God. The average person who would be receptive to genuinely left-wing ideas just isn't presented with the information in a neat media package like this. Like, this in particular was boring because it's aimed at bureaucrats, but like, if we were to make a commie version of this...
When somebody, for example, joins CPUSA, don't you have like a bunch of videos that, of like...
No.
Higher ranking members sitting and explaining, okay, these are the basic perspectives that we have on this, and this. No? What?
No.
That's like what you need to play for everybody. What you teach? Okay.
There was one. What they do is they have an orientation, and I'm not. This is again, dear listener. This is not me shitting on any particular organization. This is just my experience with one, with my orientation when I worked with them for a bit. They had one of the national people come on and give like a pre-written or a pre.
Well, physically there, so there's always
physically there.
Why not remove that and have a fucking video?
Which is what I said.
The guy's
like,
time, for every single orientation, what, like a 200 times a year, somebody needs to stand up and okay. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just
corporate brain is turning on. That is not efficient. Okay.
Exactly, and that's the thing. Like the ideas that the left has resonate with the masses. They always have. It's just a matter of making use of the tools at our disposal, which we're really bad at for some reason. You know, I think we, the three of us, the Deprogram, all the left-wing content creators have a role to play here. We just need to work on the whole united front thing that the conservatives are so good at. But that was just one little bit that came to me after watching this slop. I'm like, man, why can't we do this but better? Why are we so bad at unity and, you know, just presenting the ideas and, you know, whatever. Anyway, that was my bit. That was my the monsters in the attic left-wing code words and language or whatever. So please, for the love of God, one of you take it away.
So my guy was Ben Friedman. His job description was, I don't know, I rewatched it 5 times, so I'll just say digital guy of digital marketing for the digital persona of the American digital eagle soaring over American digital mountains, or whatever similar shit to that. A small bean millennial man who seems quite proud of himself and his efforts during the Trump administration. Now, before I start with my dude, this whole thing is pretty wild from the get-go, because remember, he's giving us advice on how to properly manage social media messaging. My part to repeat is social media messaging from inside. Again, to repeat, from inside of different branches of government, not the Republican Party as a party, but independent state institutions with the intent to ideologize their outward branding. And let's face it, in the age of social media, the most important aspect of how they're perceived. And it starts kind of heavy.
A significant portion of your social media and communications operation will be staffed by civil servants. In my case, it was 100%. If coming from a political role, you've had the privilege of working alongside a highly motivated team with deep political alignment and a sense of urgency. Your new team probably doesn't have the same politics as you, possibly even the opposite.
Nothing is left unsaid here. You are now a part of a larger team with different political viewpoints. They address that. Or no political viewpoints at all. This is a barrier that needs cleansing. I mean, crossing. So how do you do that? Well, first, and these are not my words, you find people who are ideologically close to you, in this case, conservative nut jobs. It's a very visible, our boy has worked in media, so his wording is very, dog whistly. But what he proceeds to imply is that after finding your political allies, so again, Trump won, you are given a position of leadership in a particular department, a particular state agency, etc., etc. So you need to find your political allies, and you're to minimize the amount of influence others can have on your day-to-day operations. So what's the actual practical approach? Well, what he basically says is simply promote the shit out of everyone who is in line with the current administration. That way, you likely don't even need to do mass layoffs, which are, a PR taboo. Simply relegate them to the basement, an eternal management classic. Next, we move to the tasks themselves. I don't know. That part to me was like very like, oh my God, hella mask off, but he was saying it through dog whistles or whatever. But again, to simplify as much as possible, he's saying, yo, in social media, usually not conservative people work, or liberals work, or people that don't really are there to push a particular political viewpoint. And very often they're civil servants that work in these institutions. So what you need to do is find guys who are openly ideological, and they're most likely going to be the guys that approach you because you're the new boss and you very obviously have deep ties to the conservative movement. And then once you find your guys, don't promote based on previous experience, don't promote based on how good somebody is at their job. No, put every department head, define every department head as someone who represents your wider ideology, and that pretty much completely changes the way the operation is run. So next, let's move to actual tasks. Now, your task as someone, that's in their words, as someone working in social media for whatever agency or company, is to convey what said agency or company wants to put across to the public. Pretty simple, right? Well, not when there's outright ideology involved. Here our small bean thumb implies, again, I must say, by not saying any of the quiet parts out loud, that you limit any potential creativity by your social media team. How? You literally feed them pre-approved talking points and say that messaging them to the public is the only job you're here to do. Oh, you want to give a spin to something or openly share disagreement with policy? No longer really possible. Your job is basically copy pasting at this point. By making the borders extremely tight on what your team can express, and through it the agency you're running, you don't really leave any space for internal sabotage. Again, a completely 100% legal approach to kind of redefining job descriptions for people so that you don't even have to have a talk with them about, hey, why did you say something that I politically disagree with you on, which is illegal, right? But if you only say we can only post the shit that the current government in office is pre-approved for us to post, you're kind of limiting the scope of what he can do. And if he chooses not to follow through on that, he's basically not doing his job right, and you can fire him and replace him with somebody who's on your own or closer to your own political spectrum.
Yeah, that's interesting. Harping on control there, because that was the same thing that the two women did in my section. Was like, when we're talking about language, and there's something about climate change in a document, go back as many times as you need to get them to remove the language that references climate change. Like, to do, if it takes 50 iterations to get them to water it down to where it's no longer about climate change, do 50 iterations. Our job is to stonewall, is basically their thing, which is, props for dedication, I guess. But yeah, the control thing is very clear.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the point of Project 2025 to an extent. I mean, that's the point of every government. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you, Hakeem, like this, like, we're more direct? I don't know. In the Balkans, a new government comes, they just fire literally everybody. And then they just put their guys literally everybody. But basically. Yeah, but because there's some legislature kind of in place in the U.S. to an extent on this topic, they have to kind of move around it. But again, you have more than enough tools at your disposal in a country where the so-called employer is God King and the employees are not, for you to basically push them out of the job or force them to, as you said, JT, to pretty much embrace the new way things are done, which is, again, that goes back to what they would refer to in this particular segment as empowering your team, where he just says always meet with exclusively your senior staff, the management, and make sure they are doing their job right. Pretty, classic corporate system, but keep in mind, from what he said in the beginning, your senior staff are people on your ideological team. So you can probably be far more candid with them on topics like firings, better ideologized messaging, and so on. It transforms the whole organization, not bottom up, but top down. If you're having one-to-one meetings with these guys who you know they're on your team, you can very openly say, okay, Maria is fucking constantly complaining, constantly not properly pushing the messaging that we want from this particular agency on this and this reform that is coming down from the Trump administration. Please find me information on when she's late to work, when she's not fulfilling her job tasks, etc., etc. Start making a file so we get rid of that chick, okay? They talk like that to themselves. That's why from the get-go, it was extremely important for them to define that all senior staff got to be 100% your guys, so that, the cleansing can begin dripping downwards.
The more that it is known that you work on behalf of and are trusted and empowered by those in positions above you, with the absolute ace card being a mandate from the White House, the easier it will be to get things done. When things get difficult, having leadership being willing to step in, often just in the form of replying to an email to have your back, will remove a ton of friction that can otherwise stand in your way.
Now, here our 3 watermelons stacked on top of each other boy introduces classic Machiavellian scheming. Let everyone know the big wigs have your back. Because in the office, all authority is based on perception. And if it's visible, higher-ups in the administration have put you there to push their agenda, then everyone shuts the hell up. So simply establish your relationships with leadership properly, aka reach out to them and tell them you'll be their sweet, sweet boy, and in return, they'll put any ideological stragglers or careerists in their place when they get that scary email from said bigwig. Again, this is a classic, but with a political twist. And a lot of people think, probably this idea pops into their mind, you're now the boss of a department in a particular agency, but they're telling you, our higher-ups, or people even in the Republican administration, they won't mind you reaching out and saying, I'm your guy, okay? But please help me be your guy in this agency that is supposed to be, politically independent. So when they come back and they actually have your back, then you actually become a figure of authority, not only because of your position, but because you're quite literally scary because a fucking senator just called or a senator just emailed, right? So again, this is not even dog whistling at this point. They're telling you, hey, we are resources at your disposal. As long as you say, wink, wink, I'm your guy, we're going to be your guy. Very borderline mafia talk, unironically.
Yeah.
Then we move to actual work, which was very fucking boring. There's nothing special really said here at all. I thought they were going to, actually introduce some relatively interesting, conservative social media manipulations. But my guy was mostly concentrated on, the way you should manage your team. But yeah, he just talks about classics on how one should run a social media marketing team, templates, messaging examples, style guides, and so on and so on. He's really not reinventing the wheel here, but I can imagine he must sound pretty internet savvy to ancient mummy lords that hire him. The only thing that might be interesting to our dear listeners and to you guys here is that they really prefer to concentrate on output volume. So streamline the shit out of everything so that we can be communicating, posting, editing, and posting non-fucking stop. Volume. And he repeats this many points, as Goebbels himself said, if you repeat something enough times, it becomes the truth. But yeah, I guess because this is the drive, that's why we always see so much, so many conservative videos, so many conservative Twitter posts, like these guys are always on the grind and there's always something coming. And they're all just repeating the same thing. But because they're posting for so many different platforms that have so many different types of followings, the message spreads a bit more. So something we could maybe learn from this particular comment as well.
What works well on X, formerly Twitter, is going to be different in many ways from what works well on YouTube or Instagram. The same can be said in comparing any two mediums. Pay attention to how users, including yourself, engage with each of these platforms, and make sure to differentiate your formatting and style to maximize impact.
The ghouls are adapting, and they know different audiences congregate on different platforms. This is nothing new as well, of course, but in the context of Project 2025, it pretty much implies being aware of how much of your power level you're showing every time you post, because the kids on YouTube are very different to the ghouls, respectable elders over on Facebook. So here they're basically, just reminding you, hey, keep in mind who's listening and who you should be more outright homophobic, racist, and so on, and bigoted in front of, and then another audience where we should keep a more quote-unquote moderate terminology. Again, not reinventing the wheel, but seeing them quite literally say it out loud is always a decent affirmation, as the Gen Xers used to say.
And it shows they know what they're doing.
Yeah. And we finish with some nepotism. Number one, make your account indispensable by utilizing your connection to your higher up ideological buddies. Let them feed you information so that you're the first to post about it, and they'll get political points in return. Basically, as we've established, turn your department or agency into a willing loudspeaker for your administration's political gain. Number two, steal shit. He kind of literally says it. Use whatever is currently trending and give it a conservative spin. Equals profit. Thank God they can't meme though, so they end up just looking goofy. But yeah, they seem to be at the very least aware of how digital trends work. And number three, nobody wants boring policy shit on their feeds. Make content you would like to see yourself. And finally, as he says it, do no harm. I love this one. One social media, and then you're like, oh my God, decent guy. I misinterpreted everything that he said up until this point, but no. What he means by do no harm is do no harm to the movement, because one social media post can ruin the reputation of a whole government. So don't risk it. Keep it mid and don't overexpose. I'm harping on this too much, but because he's harping on it, don't overexpose your power levels. In conclusion, I got the boring guy, but still, no less mask off as fuck.
I think that's the thing. It's like, a lot of this stuff is boring, but that's how the real world works, right? It's not like, Tucker Carlson's not going to be at the head of some goon squad of fascist super soldiers. They're just slowly going to take over more and more critical aspects of the government until we're all living in a really just stupid, shitty Javier Milei-esque dystopia, like right-wing libertarian bullshit.
Exactly. That's a smart way to do it. And that's what the direction they want to go in.
Well, that beautiful presentation from the boys out of the way, we are now on to arguably the most fucking boring.
Yes.
The worst.
You cannot defeat
possible.
My guy. There is no fucking way you're eating watermelon
distilled, now. Fucking, lukewarm. I don't know what to even fucking call it. It's like milk with the bits in it, right? That's what it's fucking like. All right. Okay. So already, this is supposed to be covering the conservative movement history. It begins hilariously, actually, with quotes from Reagan and Trump, clips of them speaking. as they're masturbating over the greatness of the United States, they try to kind of be balanced by showing some quote-unquote good Democrats, JFK and Roosevelt, some little tidbits of them speaking, and then end it with Reagan again, masturbating about the U.S., as they show footage of Biden falling down the flight,
okay, that's kind of funny.
plane flight stairs. It's almost, it genuinely is edited as if it's a joke we were making.
Yeah.
Legitimately. Even to the point of like getting like, oh, we can't just have Republicans. We need to get two token Democrats that the Republicans did like, or at least were more okay with. Anyways, or at least were popular in the United States. Regardless, Malagizi, which at first I was like, is this one of our guys? I was like, no. I don't mean one of our guys is in the left. I mean, is he Arab? But no, apparently he's Greek, I think. It's unclear. But anyways, this guy from Hillsdale College, the DC branch of it's a Michigan private school, basically. Liberal arts, blah, blah, blah. Garbage. I don't know. People waste their money to go to these institutions for nothing. I'm assuming it's a revolving door for wealthy donors and people who represent, like,
yes,
I'm on the board on this bullshit, and I'm at the head of this bullshit institution, and they just kind of get their kids grandfathered in, and they need some diploma just to be able to justify it, so they put them through these institutions, is my assumption. Anyways, just a little thing about Hillsdale College. In October of 2023, so probably when this was being made, two female students sued the college because they reported on sexual assaults from male students, that the college basically performed some bullshit investigation, as in phony investigation. They pretended to investigate, but they didn't do anything. And then afterwards basically blamed the two female college students for being, assaulted. I'm not gonna be more explicit, but for being assaulted, they blamed them for being assaulted. And the lawsuit was basically carried through. And in the lawsuit, they specifically specify that the Hillsdale policy that they've had since their basically founding, which is not since their founding, but very recently, to not accept public funding and only to accept donor funding, was so that they would not be controlled by the state or some bullshit. But in reality is that they don't need to abide by the Education Amendments Act of 1972, which basically means that they don't have to protect female students or have a responsibility to protect female students. They don't have a responsibility to protect students from racial violence, etc., basically. And this is, increases the likelihood of sexual assault. And also those who commit sexual assault getting away with it, because there's literally zero consequences that they could get from this university. Anyways.
Hold on, let me jump in real quick, because you said Hillsdale. I was like, Hillsdale. When did I see Hillsdale recently? And I looked it up again. And the top result is a sponsored post from Hillsdale College, just called Marxism, Socialism, and Communism. It's their new documentary course that they have.
Ooh,
and it says, understand the theory of Marxism in our new course, Marxism, Socialism, and Communism. Learn how a prosperous Russia became oppressive.
I love it.
That's so
we need to
good.
watch. Okay, let the people shall speak. Let us know. Right? If this is something we need to do.
As we all just said, I'm never watching something for this again. They're like, ooh, let's watch another thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Please continue.
For content, baby. No, actually, I would watch it just like you mentioned, to hate watch. But the thing is, we need to be in the same place, and I need to sit next to you so I can look right at this. I can burn a hole through the side of your head watching you react to this. Anyways, the first and foremost, which is something that we mentioned continuously, this is so boring. It's like a guy who, I can read the most boring, Soviet anthropological bullshit. I can read the most boring medical nonsense. This is not an issue for me, and I was struggling. This guy, this is his first time. I don't know if he's just reading from a teleprompter or just reading in general, but he fucking stumbles over his words. He has zero confidence or charisma or any positive energy with the thing that he's doing. His heart is not in it whatsoever. He's badly pretending to not read off the teleprompter, but they bring the camera in too close, so you see his eyes scanning back and forth very clearly. It's just oh my god. It's garbage. It's just generally fucking. And the worst part is the bit where he trips over his words, but he doesn't correct it. Sometimes we do this in the podcast, and the beautiful JT corrects it nicely. But he'll have this thing where he's generally he'll trip over the word 2-3 times, and then he just starts from the beginning and continues. It's so fucking badly produced.
That's terrible.
I should have saved some examples. There's 3 or 4 of them. But anyways, at the 2-minute 30 mark, he mentions a Lee Edwards and a George Nash.
Putting a course like that together would have been impossible without the pioneering work of 2 leading historians. Dr. Lee Edwards and Dr. George H. Nash. Dr. Edwards currently serves as Distinguished Fellow in Conservative Thought at the Heritage Foundation, and much of the presentation I'm about to give today is based on his many published works. Most importantly, from his seminal work, The Conservative Revolution, the Movement That Remade America, which is one of the primary texts that I used in my classroom, which is an overview of conservatism from the years 1945 to 2000. The other historian is Dr. George H. Nash, whose groundbreaking book, The Conservative Intellectual Movement in America Since 1945, another of the textbooks that I used, was also incredibly influential in mine and much of the conservative movement's understanding of itself and its philosophical history.
Now, Lee Edwards, for those who are unaware, is a biographer of Reagan, so already there's one checkpoint on him being a douche. Yeah. He is also, or was at the time, an editor for a journal that nobody knows about, or like a magazine type thing, titled The World and I, which was owned by Sun Myung Moon. I don't know if you know who Sun Myung Moon is, but he is the messiah figure for the Unification Church, which is like a Falun Gong type adjacent cult. Yeah, but it's a bastardization of Christianity, where one of the central pillars or whatnot is anti-communism, of course, and a bunch of other bullshit. It's just another one of these weird cults that is headquartered in the United States for some reason. Anyways, Edwards is also a co-founder of the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation. Oh, hell yeah. Beautiful, of course. So he's basically, this is a guy that's like, oh no, Mussolini, oh fuck it, no, Mussolini was killed by communists. He's a victim of communism, right? And he's also a signatory guy who fucking put the signatory of the Prague Declaration on European Conscience and Communism Act, or not act, but declaration, I guess. Can you guess what the Prague Declaration on European Conscience and Communism is supposed to be about? It is supposedly supposed to be a condemnation of totalitarianism on the European continent, specifically Nazism and communism, like the weird the horseshoe theories, bullshit. There is not one mention of Nazism or fascism in the title, hilariously. The majority of the fucking thing is just about specifically communism. They have like a few token references to fascism, but specifically against socialism and whatnot. And the people who signed it are a whole host of fucking nobodies. But what's beautiful about them is if you look at every single one, like without fail, they at some point were on the U.S. payroll or had connections with U.S. intelligence, or like it's and you could not pick a more perfect little bunch of CIA adjacent agent bullshit, traitors to their countries of various forms, right? And the typical like, aided the Nazis, or they come from like some aristocratic quote unquote noble family and their slaves were taken away, right? These types. But anyways, moving aside from that, Nash, the other guy he mentions, is less cringe, more scholarly, intellectual kind of type. Anyways, he goes on to discuss American exceptionalism around the 5-minute mark.
So if one was curious, one might ask, what are American conservatives inherently trying to conserve, to keep together, and protect from harm or destruction? The answer would be American exceptionalism. The idea that America is unique in the annals of human history, and that our founding in 1776 was based on certain first principles and ideas that were, in one sense, revolutionary, and in another, based on thousands of years of human history, experience, achievement, acquired knowledge, customs, and traditions.
But what's beautiful is he kind of frames American exceptionalism as a culmination of Western civilization. The United States is the peak of civilization, is what he's trying to refer to. And if the peak of civilization is like Cinnabons and homeless people on the street, then fuck me. Hey. This is a bad showing on the human race. But regardless, he lists JT. Yeah. If you were to give me a list of Western civilization, I don't know, the top 10 hits, basically, right? Yeah. Which civilizations would you put? Give me three.
From the American perspective, let's go ancient Rome, ancient Greece, and Israel, I guess. The OG.
You got it. Yeah, you got it. I was not expecting you to get it. All right. He lists the very first ancient civilization that the United States was influenced by, and the culmination of Western civilization is ancient Jerusalem.
Yeah, dab. I knew it.
As we say in Arabic, khari ala kharita. It literally means like a shit stain on the map, right? Not to be that guy, but Jerusalem was literally fucking nothing.
Yeah.
Especially compared to all the magnificent centers of civilization all around it. This is not a thing against Jerusalem. Jerusalem is a beautiful historic city, but Jerusalem came into its own as a magnificent city, not during ancient in like 1000 BC, all right, or 500 BC, I guess. It came into its own like Roman, mid to late Roman period until the Arab point, which is when it actually took off as a proper city. But
it's just so mythologized. Like, we're not allowed to not mention Israel in the evangelical tradition.
Exactly.
But at least he was smart enough not to just call it Israel. I was expecting him to just call it Israel, ancient Israel or something.
Yeah. Which is hilarious, by the way. Ancient Jerusalem, when it was surrounded by, the Egyptian civilizations and the various Mesopotamian civilizations, from depending on where you want to, like how far you want to go to, but from Sumerians to the Akkadians, Babylonians, and the Assyrian, the fucking Medes, the Hittites, anyways, I'm not to like get too ahead of myself, but it is so fucking stupid to even list this as one of the beginning things, and it's very clearly done just so that they can draw a Christian thing. Because everything else has no religious underpinning, basically. This is the only way that they could have connected. Regardless, he goes ancient Jerusalem, Athens, Rome, London, and Philadelphia. Of course. One of these is maybe not like these other ones. I don't know. But yes, Philadelphia, the fucking cheese, I guess, the cream cheese.
Hell yeah.
But my point being is the selectivity of Western civilization, the omittance of Egypt and Babylon and whatnot, because they're brown, I guess, and Rome gets a pass here, and the Greeks, of course, but just don't let any Greeks or Italians immigrate to the United States. That's one step too far. But anyways, moving aside, he claims that again the basis of the United States at around the 6-minute mark. He claims that it's the personification of liberty, the consent of the governed, the property rights, the respect for institutions, all that kind of stuff. But at no point does he make the double connection of saying, oh yeah, but not like for the blacks or natives.
Right.
Nowhere does he even like think about the systematic exclusion of non-whites, the entire idea of what a human being is, right? Let's not forget the fucking 3/5 of a human being nonsense, Jesus. Right? And to this day, this is something that very irritates me, because the United States, more than any country on earth, has this thing for, like, the property is sacred. But property is sacred for a very small slither of people.
Yeah.
Not for the vast majority of the population. That wasn't true back then, because the rightful owners of the land, the Native Americans, and the rightful owners of the labor, the African slaves, were not given their due right in any shape or form. Yeah. So they were these people who apparently prided themselves on the consent of the governed, personification of liberty, property rights, did not respect that for the Native Americans for the land, or African Americans for the labor. And up to this day, police are like the biggest thieves in the United States. More things are stolen by police than actual burglars.
Yeah.
If the United States decides to fucking apprehend you and take shit from you, they don't have to legally give it back to you. There is no actual consent of the governed. The vast majority of the United States population, particularly the voting population, and this is not even mentioning the people who are not allowed to vote because of nonsense felonies and whatnot, this kind of bullshit. The vast majority of people who are eligible to vote choose not to bother voting because they feel such little connection with the political system, and they feel that they're so... That there's no fucking impact that they could even have, let alone it serving their interests, that they don't bother. But of course, this is tied into the idea that there is consent of the government. Slavery in the United States continues to exist, particularly in prisons, but also elsewhere. Entire agricultural sectors in the United States rely on practically slave labor. Practically, I mean, just because they pay them cents on the hour doesn't...
I think you misunderstand why people don't vote in the United States, Hakeem. It's because we know we've already achieved the pinnacle of democracy, right? So why do we? Why even bother, right? It's just a well-oiled machine.
Just like Trump said. My favorite quote is at the end of this stupid tirade. He mentions the greatest experiment in history of human liberty. That's the United States,
Christ.
Supposedly. The greatest experiment in history of human liberty.
The eagles sound off in background. Gunshots. Yeehaw, brother.
And again, the nation built on genocide of two races, slavery.
Calling this out is cliche at this point, Hakeem. Like it's hypocrisy.
I'll move on.
Like,
exactly.
No. I'm not criticizing you. It just doesn't even work. They're like, okay, yeah, bye. They're like, fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. You want to know what makes it even better?
And while striving to be a more perfect union, it was not always perfect. And at times, this was challenged, and rightfully so. America had to fight a civil war for the fulfillment of promises made in our Declaration of Independence to enslaved people, and it took another 100 years to achieve their full civil rights. But overall, even throughout these and many other challenges, American citizens and our country's leaders generally respected and revered the Constitution, its processes, and accumulated wisdom.
He mentions slavery as if it was an aberration.
A little oopsie.
That's the implication here. Not that it was something built into the system. Again, the 3/5 a fucking human being thing, right? Yeah, and okay. I'm gonna stop harping on this point, but something that really irritates, because conservatives talk about wanting to conserve and blah blah all this stuff, and they want to go back to 1776 and the image or the founding principles and ideas of the founding, all this nonsense, right? But at the same time, they really want to rewrite all the ugly bits that are really indefensible at this point, right? Like slavery, or particularly chattel slavery in the way that it was done in the United States. But anyways, moving on with this, they have an entire segment where they kind of like frame progressives, quote unquote progressives, as the enemy of the United States, but there's no definition of what a progressive is. They just mention progressives, right? And they're all over the political spectrum with the things that they reference, right? But the underlying implication that they have is that progress happens just because, right? Yeah. If you were just to let the market do everything and have minimal regulation and minimal government interaction and let people just quote unquote maximize their liberty, then progress socially, economically, politically, etc. will just happen. And again, just because. There's no struggle, there's no fight, there's nothing. It will just happen, right?
Oh my God.
And he's such a stupidly myopic point that it almost like runs around on itself and becomes correct again, because technically saying just happens is, like in the historical material sphere, like social change will occur as a result of economic change and what this stuff will actually just literally just happen, right?
But that is not how he meant it.
But you understand what I'm trying to say, right?
Of course, yeah. I mean, no social progress has ever been made without people being like, "Hey, this is bullshit. Let's change it." Right?
Yeah.
But his
primitive accumulation and whatnot.
Yeah, his pitch is no, don't change anything. But it will happen. Trust me, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I also have a bridge in San Francisco to sell you.
Exactly right. Yeah. He talks a lot about this federalism and low interference things in the United States. And he says, "Oh, this was the perfect thing in the 1800s, but then the evil progressives in the early 20th century started ruining it." But he doesn't understand the fact that the reason the United States, as a government entity, did not exercise as much, heavy-handedness at the time, was twofold. Number one, the expansion westward and settlement into frontiers was built upon the enslavement and genocide of Native Americans and blacks, of course, as well as the pioneer spirit. Basically some fucking hillbilly going out into the wilderness and doing whatever the fuck he wants. Destruction and rape and theft and whatever the fuck he wants. If there was an actual system of institutions that would hold this man accountable, nobody would go out west because it would be too much to deal with. Not from, killing, not because of any moral qualms, but because the state would actually be after them for, not dodging taxes or something, right? That's why they didn't do it. That's number one. And number two, because the United States lacked the technological sophistication, and every nation at the time lacked the technological sophistication to be able to, surveil all these fucking people, especially in a country as wide, vast, and underpopulated, quote unquote, as the United States was at the time. So it's not because of the goodness of their hearts. Okay, there's a materialist reason to both, but they don't fucking they have absolutely zero understanding that this could be possibly have a reason. It's because of the goodwill of the United States government and some higher ideal of federalism or some bullshit. Moving along, at around the 13th minute mark, they start talking about how the conservatives in the early 20s won the elections, and then all of a sudden the roaring 20s, oh boy, two guys come into power, and all of a sudden, champagne fucking fountains. It had zero.
By the time of the presidential election of 1920, America seemed to have had enough of progressive experimentation. The Republican nominee, Warren Harding, and his vice presidential nominee, Calvin Coolidge, ran for president with the campaign promise of a return to normalcy. Harding and Coolidge overwhelmingly won the popular vote, the largest popular vote landslide since James Monroe ran for re-election unopposed in 1820, 100 years ago. Under Harding and Coolidge, America witnessed the Roaring Twenties and oversaw one of the greatest periods of economic prosperity and cultural novelty in American history.
And I cannot emphasize this enough. He does not even mention the possibility that the severe annihilation of all America's industrial competitors within Europe had been completely devastated and destroyed, so that the only practically industrialized nation left on Earth, or highly industrialized nation left on Earth, was the United States, which allowed it to be the basically capital driving mechanism for all this lending and all this fucking foreign direct investment.
No.
Devastation of Europe was a boon of American capital, and subsequently some of it went to the American people. That's why the quote-unquote Roaring Twenties happened, right? And by the way, the vast majority of the Roaring Twenties did not affect like regular people. It affected mostly urban, upper middle class people, and that's why you see the the stupid dapper dresses and the stupid haircuts and the
Gatsby stuff,
right? Exactly right. But again, I'm being far too nuanced. This is what no materialism does to a motherfucker. I don't know what to tell you. But anyways, he goes on to like enter into the Great Depression talking points, and he repeatedly sees Democrat like organized increased government spending or foundation or founding of some bureau or office or institution. He sees these things as bad and enlarging the state bureaucracy, blah blah, but doesn't ever comment on Republicans either expanding the spying apparatus or the military or expanding wars abroad.
Not that good.
Even up into the 50s, 60s, 70s, like when that became regular Republican policy. Again, myopic liberal bullshit analysis. I don't know. Like, I'm not gonna beat this to fucking death, but you understand my point, right? The analysis here is so fucking vapid. It's so surface fucking level. It makes you angry just trying to fucking talk about it.
Yeah.
And what irritates me is this is what you said. Both of you guys mentioned. This is not meant for like a public, this is meant for their people. Yeah. Bureaucrats in the government.
Like who don't need to be sold on this stuff, right? Like they don't even need to really believe it, but they're still presenting it this way. So it's like, maybe they do need to sell this stuff. I don't know. Maybe that's the only way they get these people to do the work.
Do you know, I'm going to paraphrase the thing, but it's like one of the difficulties of Soviet prediction and countering of American, particularly military strategy, but other strategies, was because the Soviets would try to find a common thread of logic to the things the Americans would do, but the meme, and the Americans would joke themselves about, is that there was no logic to American process. That's why it was so difficult for others to counter it.
That
of
rocks.
course, this is with a high pinch of salt, but you understand what I mean. Anyways, he pulls FDR through the dirt, which is FDR was arguably one of the very few decent-ish U.S. presidents, and that was by necessity, really, because otherwise they'd have a Russia situation on their hands, or Soviet situation on their hands. But regardless, he continuously refers, and he's done this maybe 3 or 4 times during this, he continuously refers to FDR's high tax rate back then as a thing that fucking started, like, it completely destroyed freedom and then squandered possibilities for further growth, blah, blah, blah. He paints it as the fucking devil, without mentioning that the vast overwhelming majority of people, both back then and even today, without adjusting for inflation, if you're to keep the same fucking amounts of money, today, would have a hard time meeting this fight. It's difficult to find the exact cutoff, but it's something like $250,000, I believe, at the time, would be taxed at 76%, which is a very high percent. But $250,000 was like $6 million or something a year, adjusted for inflation. I don't know any. It's hard to find people making $250,000 just regularly. One guy making $250,000 a year now, let alone $6 million a year, just fucking regularly, right?
Yeah.
And one source also that I read is that when actually applied, the highest tax bracket rating affected a single individual, one guy. Yeah. So,
I bet that dude was pissed.
Fuck him. But that's it's incredibly ridiculous. Anyways, he goes on like into the post-war period, and he talks about the new right and how they recognize the scary international communist threat, fucking typical Cold War bullshit. And then afterwards, he talks about the the three-legged stool. Stool is very literal, I would say. I mean feces. Because he mentions classical liberals, traditionalists, and anti-communists. You'll fucking play the stupid clip.
So we begin our story of the philosophers by analyzing 3 disparate groups of thought leaders whose ideas would become the basis of this new right and burgeoning conservative movement in the post-FDR, post-World War II era. According to conservative historian Dr. George H. Nash, these 3 groups would make up what would be called the conservative three-legged stool. They were the classical liberals and libertarians, the traditionalists, and the anti-communists.
funnily enough, classical liberals, traditionalists, anti-communists, he's just saying the same thing 3 times. And the very fine differences between these groupings, I guess. He lists people that I don't think would ever associate themselves with this breakdown. Like one of them is Hayek, where he mentions his road to cringedom. Fucking garbage. Yeah. He goes on a little fucking rant where he says, central planning means socialism. Socialism means serfdom, but of course, don't remember that you own nothing under capitalism. You rent literally everything. Yeah. But serfdom is totalitarianism. So if you decide to do any sort of, trying to reduce insulin prices, then that means you're going to be in a totalitarian, 1982 fucking...
Immediately. NKVD walks into your house. Says, exactly, what are all the spoons, motherfucker?
Exactly right. We need the exact count. We need to take the nickel out of your fucking tooth fillings. Yeah. But, then he mentions Friedman, of course, free market garbage, Mises, scientific analysis.
Yeah, your guys was the worst one, I agree. Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Holy shit.
By the way, to specify, no material analysis. He links all these people, and he names other people, by the way, not just Mises and not just economists, other people too. He doesn't understand why these quote-unquote different thought leaders who also happen to be white, wealthy, from ruling class backgrounds, intimately connected to capital, all of them coalesced around the ideas of conservative, free market, anti-communist. I wonder why they all settled on less taxes are great, less government regulations great. Why would these people, could they possibly have a material reason driving their actual funding of certain economic policies, or is it completely fucking metaphysical? The mind over matter. People are fucking stupid. Anybody who watches this shit and agrees with it is a fucking idiot. Moving on. He by the way, in mentioning all of the various names, he says Keynesian wrong. He says it the way I say it.
Keynesian economics.
But the difference is that I have an excuse. I'm not an English speaker. I'm not a native speaker, and despite the fact that I'm a native speaker, I've developed English to such a point that I refuse to have respect for it, and I will intentionally mispronounce should I desire. This dude does not have that excuse.
Interesting. Who is this guy? Who's this schmuck?
Well, this dude. This is a professor. This, that. Yeah, he teaches. He teaches this history of cringe. There's a quote I want to read you. This is not. You're not gonna play this for the people. I want to read this to you boys. And I want you to comment on it.
All right.
And there we go. This is from Robert Nisbet. The history of the West since the end of the Middle Ages was the story of decline of intermediate associations between the individual and the state, the weakening and dissolution of such ties as family, church, guild, and neighborhood had not, as many had hoped, liberated men. Instead, it produced alienation, isolation, spiritual desolation, and the growth of mass man. But man cannot live in Hobbesian isolation, and so, to satisfy his longings, he seeks out community, eventually finding it in the totalitarian state. The ending is absolute garbage and stupidity, of course. Yeah. But the entire, up until the last sentence, this could have been written by a Marxist, as long as the final sentence frames it in the fact that what happened since the end of the Middle Ages? What happened through the northern Italian city-states that eventually migrated to Amsterdam and the Holland, Netherlands area, that then went into the UK, and then that created the capital base for eventual... what am I talking about here? The development of capitalism specifically is what he's... This is where the material analysis falters.
Yeah.
The atomization of individuals is positive for the development of capitalism. That's why it drove the weakening and dissolution of ties of family, church, guild, neighborhood, blah blah. It produces alienation, isolation, spiritual desolation. Yeah, and if they would read a book, right? If they would fucking read a book.
Alas, that's funny. I love it when they do that. Yeah. And they're just like, and this was bad. It's like, you asshole.
Yeah. But we always come back to the question, is this intentional ignorance for the cash, or is this just pure stupidity? And kind of we're developing two schools of thought here, because but based on the way Hakeem is reading his guy, is he's losing his shit, is this guy is just stupid. So that is one deprogram school of thought. And then the way JT was reading his ladies, a whole lot, Misogynistic Yugopnik moment. At least one in every episode. Today I think I scored like 4 or 5. But yours is like... Nah, they can't be believing this shit. They're in it for the cash, and it's probably pretty much on an individual basis, from person to person. Yeah. And which one to you is worse? Like, is it worse for you? You're selling your soul basically for some bureaucratic position.
Yes.
Or you just like are incapable of critical thought. Ignorance can be
fixed.
Right?
Ignorance can be fixed. Yes, there are stupid people. But if I truly believe if information is presented to you in a way you can understand, at least a little bit, that can be fixed. Understanding and choosing to do a bad thing, a thing that hurts other people, that to me isn't defensible.
Yeah, I agree, but you're looking at it 100% from a moral lens.
True.
But
true.
I agree 100%. But also, if you look at it like. The ones doing it for cash, there's like a certain level of honesty to their misdeeds. They're like, the world is fucked up. I don't give a shit. There's no fucking rules. I'm gonna do whatever makes me the most money with the least effort. Right? I'm gonna get mine. The other ones are just schmucks. Like they present themselves to themselves. They identify with the pursuit of knowledge, yet they always find themselves furthest to it. So I guess, between do you choose based on morality, like because these are evil and the other ones are ignorant, or do you choose on the basis of like at least these guys have a certain level of honesty to them and the others just schmucks? Because I really can't respect a schmuck. But
sound off, dear listener. I want to know what you think. Which is worse? We got to know. We got to solve this schism in the deprogram.
And Hakim's guy is a fucking university professor. Like, there's no point. There's no like moment there where you can excuse ignorance.
Professor,
lack of access,
he's in some like list of 40 under 40 bullshit. He's a Mr. Big Shot.
He has access to fucking everything. He needed to study enough to get a fucking PhD, right? The levels of I don't know, just he just has high rates of like computing power, like he can go through information and recite, but no ability for critical thought. It's to this day, like going through this world without having been born into a capitalist environment. I'm talking like proper fucking means of production owner family, and not getting to some level of class consciousness, especially in these higher echelons of society like academia or whatever, it's just like I cannot compute it. Since I'm talking about computing, I cannot compute it. It is the eternal mystery that I'm still to this day trying to kind of unwrap, because it makes absolutely no sense to me.
Yeah.
Sorry for the little rant. It's just I don't know.
Beautiful as always.
Disappoint yourself in like your fellow man. It's I don't know.
It makes it more palatable when you realize they're doing this for a fucking paycheck. If you're to re-educate these people appropriately, then if the emperor of China can be turned into then anyways, you guys paused me at the bit I know you're gonna love the most, which is their definition of communism. Fucking at the 28th minute mark, basically. For some reason, they make the wild claim that communism is not a Western idea. What the fuck? Excuse me?
According to Dr. Nash, the anti-communists had a profound conviction, being ex-radicals and former communists themselves, that the West was engaged in a titanic struggle with communism, not only abroad, but at home domestically. Communism, the economic and political theories espoused by Karl Marx, Friedrich Engels, and Vladimir Lenin, were a complete repudiation of the West, including the cherished ideas of representative democracy, free market economics, private property, free speech, tradition and customs, and religious freedom.
Wow. Okay.
They don't only say it's Western.
To say that it's not a Western idea.
They say it's anti-Western. Not only this is not Western, they say it is anti-Western. I'm like, it is rooted fundamentally in the Western philosophical tradition. What the fuck are you on? What?
That's amazing.
Of course, by the way, do you want to know what they followed it up with? Please. Oh, you could not make a better... You could not... Fucking AI couldn't come up with a better predictive generative text next bullshit.
Soviet communism called for a worldwide workers' revolution that would end up killing at least 100 million people around the world, under leaders such as Joseph Stalin, Pol Pot, Fidel Castro, and especially Mao Zedong.
100 gorillion.
Yes, good.
Classic. It is anti-Western. 100 gorillion. That's exactly what it goes into. He's resulted in the deaths of blah, blah, blah. Which I love, of course, because like anybody who stubs their fucking foreskin, anybody who zips up their foreskin in the fly of their jeans. Okay. Yeah. Oh no, jeans were a fucking high commodity. Ooh. All right. It's not like Bulgaria fucking produced tons of it. No. But anyways, if you were to fucking get a paper cut, okay, in a socialist nation, then you were counted into the victims of cuckunism. All right. But
it's offensive to even address it, man. Like,
so stupid.
Anyways, then of course they go into a like very sketch McCarthyism praising like speedrun, where they just list a bunch of people McCarthyism targeted. And they just like, they frame it as a good thing?
That's interesting, because they usually kind of just skirt over that, because like, okay, witch hunt's bad.
No, this time they were like, oh, it's good. And do you know what they followed up with? You could not, I promise you could not make a better fucking parody.
Let's
right?
see. Here, what is
he
it?
Says,
what is it?
McCarthyism is a good thing.
Yeah.
But the Soviets were evil 1984 surveillance Animal Farm.
Yes.
And then a big picture of fucking Orwell shows up on the screen.
Oh my god, I love it.
And the best part of the picture is like badly clipped, so like a corner of his face is
This is the best thing we've ever watched.
The video, I love when you spend half of the video talking about how society must be protected from authoritarianism, and then you're like, oh, remember when America went into hyper-authoritarianism? That was our best time.
And it was good, yeah.
And it was good. It's what?
Oh my god.
That's parody.
I've cringed to myself even addressing these things. It's like, I feel disrespectful to our audience, literally, because these are smart people that listen to our shit. Can I suck your dick even harder? But no, they are. and to even like talk about, like, I cringe intensely.
Dude, my thing is, if we were to make, we say this so often, if we were to try to make an intentionally like on the nose parody, we would write, oh, let's praise McCarthyism, and then let's talk about how the Soviet Union was evil 1984, Animal Farm, totality, blah, blah, blah. And then we'll fucking like cross it out and be like, no, this is too on the nose. This is too fucking, like, we still want at least some subtlety. Anyways, it's just the jokes write themselves. Moving on. Right after, by the way, McCarthyism, of course, 1984, they go into 20 minutes, almost, about how wealthy business and conservative voices and interests backed media creation, magazine, radio, and TV and whatnot. And he mentions this as if it's a positive thing that a handful of like 40 people who are like unimaginably wealthy have essentially subsidized the entire like media sphere of the conservative movement. He thinks that this is a good thing. This nowhere is there the understanding that your ideas are not popular as of themselves, and instead need to be continuously popularized, not by exposure, because that's just kind of the milieu of the American environment, but through like this constant almost indoctrination.
Propaganda fire hose,
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. Gish galloping of this nonsense.
Yeah.
Then afterwards, he starts talking about this 42-minute mark. He starts talking about a little-known network, Fox News. And then he specifically mentions, please play the clip. He specifically mentions that Fox News allowed for more fair and balanced reporting on the American media scene.
On October 7th, 1996, right before the 1996 presidential election, a small little cable news network launched, and within 6 years became the most watched cable news network in the country. I'm of course talking about Rupert Murdoch's Fox News. I cannot understate the importance of Fox News. Fox would become an alternative to the mainstream media's stronghold on traditional legacy TV media outlets. For the first time, conservatives had a channel on television that would allow for more fair and balanced coverage than what they would normally get from NBC, ABC, CBS, and CNN.
Hell yeah, dude. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Okay, this guy's in it for the money. Okay. It's very clean. No, there's no way a professor is this stupid. Yeah. This guy's in it for the money.
And of course, no sense of introspection on why Murdoch, one of the wealthiest pharaohs of all time, would want to control the media narrative by having his own little fucking media empire. No, even questioning of the possibility of why this could
No, we love cartoon villains. We love them.
Yeah. You just like news jingles, completely innocent.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and no, apparently other U.S. channels weren't right wing enough for this guy.
Of course.
So this is you can tell that I got irritated at this point because I specifically this is in between. This is in the middle. I'm not even done with the stupid fucking thing. Nothing is communicated. Nothing is said in this thing.
Yeah.
In this video, right? It is a rundown of dates, some book titles, a few names of people, some things that were founded, right? But there's no meaningful message or actual developments or how this influenced the movement. He would just mention like, oh, this person founded this, and then full stop, and then just move on.
Yeah.
Right? He'll mention that, oh, the Democrats did this, which were bad, but then the Republicans came in and they fought against, big state. Like it's very, again,
it's because they have no aspirations beyond money keep, exactly. Money make. That's it. Yeah.
Mecca the mega.
Yeah. And it's just, again, it's very disappointing to think that your ideological enemies are so inept.
Yeah.
There's some guy who has 200 views on YouTube who has some fantastic fucking, I don't know, overview of the exact state farm to collective farm distribution in the USSR, and why the fact that they had to start with collective farms, how you can kind of go towards eliminating or reducing commodity production as a societal and economic presence by the slow transition towards state farms, etc. There's certainly a 2-hour fucking video by some guy who's read 60,000 books on the topic, right? And nobody listens to this dude. Meanwhile, these people get fucking billions rained on them to spit slop. It's fucking verbal diarrhea.
And that was my conclusion, and maybe we can wrap up on this. That was what I took away from this as well. Watching this, you're like, I hate this. I hate these people regardless of their motivations, whether they believe it or not, whether they are doing it for a paycheck or not. This is our enemy. This is what we're up against. And we are losing so
what
badly.
Does it say about us? We're fucking idiots, maybe. Maybe we're the fucking idiots all along.
What
was it? The journey is realizing you're idiots with your friends the entire time.
Look, I have 3 little comments, and then we can wrap up, okay?
Yeah.
The first one was, this is towards the very end, he starts listing billionaires that helped found and fund conservative media, and of course no analysis as to why they would fund it, but it is like a who's who list of who denies climate change and funds the climate change denial. It's actually amazing how it's 1 for 1 hits. That's number 1. Number 2, he goes at the 56-minute mark, he mentions the anti-Stalinist left moves, some people that were quote-unquote part of the anti-Stalinist left, whatever the fuck that was, and then they magically just move into the far right. Very interesting how those of the anti-Stalinist left just kind of find themselves very comfortably with neocons. He also mentions he has a few token quote-unquote former communists,
of course.
Deserters of the faith who joined our movement, right? And they're all trots, completely trot into the neocon pipeline, hilariously. And then afterwards he ends it off with a hallucination hour where he basically talks about how Reagan did all good, he didn't do anything to harm the United States. Literally, he's just Reagan was good and that's that. Wow. He claims that the USSR was brought down by Reagan. It was illegally dissolved from the inside because of internal machinations and political forces within the USSR, not from the outside. He mentions that it was peacefully done, which is doing ridiculous thing, right? Something 4 million people fucking died in the aftermath, and that's not even mentioning all the little proxy conflicts that happened. And then it just ends, right? And this guy with a stupid fucking bullshit beard and uncomfortable seating where he's kind of hunched over, he has an IKEA lamp behind him and a eagle wrapped around a fucking American flag. Generally, it's a joke. My god! Wrap us up, please.
Yeah, I maybe this is just the media trained guy in me, but I'm here on this podcast, we have a dude whose whole fetish is cameras and media production and stuff like that. We have a guy who's trained in PR and advertising and knowing how to sell stuff to people, and we've got a guy who's read every book known to man,
literally every single one,
every one that's ever been made, and we have all the means at our disposal to make stuff like this, but intellectually sound, morally decent, and I don't know. When I watch stuff like this, I'm like, man, we have a responsibility that we are not fulfilling. But we're just three people. We don't have billions of dollars of funding.
Yeah.
That is at the end of the day what the challenge is. That is what the left is up against. It's not just ideas versus ideas, as the right wants to frame it. It is popular ideas of the masses that would help everybody except the people with the money, versus the people with the money and the means to fund enough schmucks without conscience to peddle their ideas and just weasel their way into people's minds so that they believe things that are bad for them materially are good for them somehow. It's
Excuse you, JT. What's good for General Motors is good for the United States.
Well, there you go. There you have it, everybody. That was just 3 of the very many examples of episodes. And it took us, we're at almost 2 hours long before I insert the sound bites.
It's going to be 3
Oh
hours.
my god, this is going to be horrible. Fuck.
So next episode, we're going to watch the rest of them.
No, we're not doing that. Absolutely not.
We're not doing
You're
that.
just getting a soundbite of that very funny channel called Top 5, like Top 5 Owl, Top 5 White
cats.
Man. Top 5.
Hello,
Yeah,
guys. Today we have a list of top 5 owl.
Hello, guys. This is Top 5. Top 5.
Numero 1. Owl fucking dies. All right, there you go. We're getting out of here. We're all delirious. Thank you to our dear patrons. We love you so much. Without you, we really couldn't do this show. If you liked this episode, do let us know. If you want us to subject ourselves to that Hillsdale College communism course, please let us know. And we'll catch you in the next one. So with all that being said, this has been the Deprogram. I'm JT.
I'm Hakeem.
I'm Yugopnik. And tell
Fuck
people
off.
what happened over here. Tell people what happened over here.